Have quorum now. Thank you. The first item is going to be a vote on the approval of the agenda.
Approval. Second.
Moved by Clive, seconded by Urbandale. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Moving on, we have a vote on the approval of the April meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Okay. By Urbandale, seconded by Des Moines. Any discussion on the meeting minutes from April? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Up next, we have an opportunity for the public to make comments. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? Doesn't appear we have anybody. Up next, we have a consent and vote on items A through C. If you have questions, this is your opportunity. Otherwise, entertain a motion.
Move. Second.
Moved by Windsor Heights, seconded by Clyde. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, same sign. Consent is approved. Up next, we're going to have a presentation by the Iowa DOT on regional projects. Ask Allison Smythe, District 1 engineer, step up to the podium.
Wait. He's informing me of the delay, so we'll see how this goes. It's fine. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Allison Smythe. I am the District 1 engineer for the DOT. District 1 is 12 counties in central Iowa. It includes the Des Moines MPO area. Also 12 counties. We have 16 maintenance garages, 3 construction residencies, a field office in Grimes, and the District 1 office is in Ames, right across the street from the main complex. We staff about 309 people year round and ramp it up to about 370 or 380 in the winter time to help us with our winter snow fighting efforts. Right now, though, we are, I think all of those guys have been released back to their normal schedules. See, we are in charge of the design of the roads, the maintenance of the roads, construction of the roads, and a lot of the planning efforts that happen within our district. There's the engineering staff that might work with our members here today. You'll notice the vacant one is our North Area engineer, and she probably wouldn't have been working with you guys she's part of the North Area. Shelby Ebel's on the list there. She attends most of your meetings. Here we have a map of the 5-year program as approved by the commission last year. You can see kind of the different dots and the lines showing all the projects that have been approved for development over the next 5 years. And if you look down there at Polk County, you see a large concentration down there. The commission is going to come to their meeting in West Des Moines the next couple weeks. The first day, Monday, June 9th, we'll be doing the tour with them. You can see the route highlighted. As it goes through the metro area, we're going to get a lot of the big projects going on right now. And then the meeting will be in West Des Moines on June 10th. Okay, so zooming in here, you can see the projects laid out here in the metro. A lot of them, a lot of projects, they're laid out by years, colors. The dots are bridges, the lines are the roadway projects. All right, so getting into actual specific projects, these are the ongoing ones. This is our Northeast Mixed Master project. We opened the roadway, the east to north flyover last fall, right around Thanksgiving. It made all the connections westbound to northbound and southbound to westbound or eastbound to southbound, sorry. Ramps, those were all opened last year. Finally, traffic is on them. There's still some work going on out there, right? They're grading the final. The old road beds are disappearing. They're adding all the erosion control, seeding and such. And just to the east of there, we're working on the first of a 3-year project to expand 30 or 80 from the Northeast Mix over to the bypass. So right now we are grading and paving those westbound lanes to the north of the current westbound lanes. When we're done, we'll have 4 lanes in each direction. You can kind of see some of the project that's going on, just photos at the bottom there. So we plan to have traffic moved over onto the new westbound lanes yet this fall, and next year we'll move eastbound traffic onto the old westbound lanes and reconstruct the eastbound lanes. And then the last year we'll come and clean up in the middle. Now, this is not a programmed project, but this is just kind of displaying what our vision is to get to eventually, when we have all the funding and all the traffic warrants it, we will add another flyover to get rid of that left turn going west to south onto 235. And then the very last one we'll do is add a 4th level ramp going from Ankeny south toward Davenport. So that'll get rid of that last loop ramp that causes us some problems. And heading north from the Northeast Mixmaster is our I-35 widening project. It's going from Ankeny up to north of Huxley right now. It's 9 miles long, 5 bridges, 2 interchanges. It's a really big project. We're in 3rd year now, and in the construction this year, we hope to finish the 210 interchange and get all the bridges back up. And then last year, or next year, is our last year of projects where we're going to pave all of the northbound lanes. So this year, we're getting all the southbound finished. We'll move traffic over to the southbound lanes that are lined now and reconstruct the northbound lanes. It'll be 2 separate packages so that we can get it done in 1 year. There's some pictures that we got of our bridges that are out right now. The 142nd bridge is very close to opening. We've got the bridge rails done, there's approach pavement up there now, and so just have some guardrail and some paint and that'll be open. And then, like I said, the 210 bridge and the 150th Avenue bridge will be up hopefully by Christmas. All right, now over to the west side of the metro. I'm sure no one has noticed any disruption in traffic over there. This is our Hickman reconstruction project. So the 2 lanes in each direction under I-30 were just not enough traffic for Hickman, so we needed to widen out Hickman. But to do that, we have to raise the bridges and lengthen the bridges to accommodate the wider pavement underneath, right? So we started this year, and you can kind of see the years are laid out over here. It's kind of hard to tell. Oh, yes. But you can kind of tell right now, we're doing the massive amount of the biggest amount of work in 1 year is this year. And it's doing all the grading and pavement adding and bridge extending on the outside lanes. So we have traffic on the inside. Those lanes are getting reconstructed this year. Next year, we'll do the inside lanes and bridges. And then the 3rd year will come through and reconstruct Hickman Avenue or Hickman Road underneath. And we'll reconstruct it then as a diverging diamond, right? Just like the one at First Avenue and Ankeny. Similar to Grand Prairie Parkway, but that was over, not under. So when we open that one, that will be 2018, and end of 27. Oh, and here's some pictures of it. The left there is the footings that they did to the Walnut Creek Bridge. Absolutely huge. That Walnut Creek Bridge is just the south of Hickman Bridge. It has to be for the project. So that's where they're working right now. The Living History Farms culvert had to get extended as part of the project, so you can kind of see the aesthetics that they've done to kind of keep with their theme for the farms. And now we've since closed out traffic for the ramps, but kind of you see all the traffic there. It's always amazing. Uh-oh. Look at my phone here. There we go, thank you. Okay, so over to the west side of the metro. This is Iowa 141 from Grimes to Granger and over heading toward Polk City. So we have several projects going on simultaneously this year. So we let them as one package so the contractor can hopefully coordinate all of the disruption, but we've got resurfacing on Iowa 141, the whole lane. We've got our Iowa 121 safety improvement project, where we're going to sever the canal 121st Street. North of 141, reconnect it via a new road 415. And that way traffic that's north of the road, then Dexter Park and the neighborhoods can go re-enter 141 through the interchange, which is a much safer option than what they're doing now. Part of that project also cuts, removes the medians along the way, the median crossovers, and the west side, west leg of Towner Drive. And then up in the northeast part of the picture, right at the south end of the Mile Long Bridge, is our roundabout project at 415 and Beaver Road. And there you can see the plan view and the kind of aerial view of the roundabout locations where the four-way stop was. Four-way stop worked for a while, but we started to see some operational issues and some crashes, so we had to look at it again. All right, Ankeny, US 69 in Ankeny, we're repaving the road on US 69 north of First Street. This is a combined project with the city of Ankeny, where we've got the driving lanes is what the DOT is replacing, and the city is coming through and doing some turn lane and signal improvements. And here is our Southwest Mix Master project. This kind of shows you a map by years of what we're planning right now. Of course, the main part of the point of this project is to get rid of the southbound, eastbound loop ramp. Traffic outgrew that loop ramp a long time ago. And so we're going to build it, reconstruct it as a flyover. It'll be a 2-lane flyover. And part of that will, when we rebuild, we'll keep the southbound and westbound traffic off. Right here, they'll get off together. Westbound Omaha ramp traffic will head this way on the inside of the 235 traffic. And then the 235 traffic will continue. This is 2 lanes. So it'll start out as 3 lanes. And then 2 lanes go off each way when they're done and carry all the heavy traffic we see out there. The big flyover will open in 28.
Sorry, when does that start? Next year?
Yep. So the first year we won't have a lot of traffic disruption, but it will start in, well, fiscal 27, so late next year.
So the Hickman interchange construction will still be ongoing when this starts up?
But the traffic impacts won't be starting. It'll be piers in the infields of the interchange. It'll be where we are working to make that as.
That'll be more 2027 or 28 when the traffic impact will start.
Well, we've got it set up to coordinate with that project. So I think the project where we are closing ramps is gonna work around the ramps, and we can't have our detour on Hickman until after it's open, so, right, so I'm not sure the exact date yet, but the plan is to coordinate that, and that's, you know, Andy Swisher and Clyde, right, we're meeting with you guys, we're meeting with West and White. We've got all of our traffic people talking to each other at this point, so we're actively, yes, very aware that this is all the funding came at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yep. Okay, and here is our Des Moines River Bridge project and our US 69 project. So there are 2 projects in the same location. The Des Moines River Bridge has just reached the end of its useful life. We are trying to get it replaced. And then the next part up here is we call it the Moines Street intersection reconstruction project. This is a project that came out of the corridor study that finished in 2022. And it identified this area as in need of safety improvements. So we've been teamed up with Des Moines to widen it. Consolidate accesses, raise the median in the middle to prevent left turns. Try and clean it up as a nice, clean, safe route. Now, the next DOT program also proposes this viaduct in the last year of the program. So up in front of the commission next month, here in a couple of weeks, is a replacement project for the viaduct, and that would start in the year 2030. So if that gets improved, or if that gets approved, excuse me, we'll end up seeing the river bridge and the roadway and the viaducts all replaced in the next 10 years or so. So that would be an exciting improvement. And upcoming projects, I know I talked about the 35 widening project up to Huxley so far. This one is just to kind of show the commute between Ames and the metro because we have so much commuter traffic there. The blue project here is what we've already been working on. And this is going to have the last year of construction next year. And then in a couple of years, we're going to jump over the red part here, and we're going to reconstruct the bridges at the 30 and 35 interchange. They have also reached the end of their useful life and need to be reconstructed. Because of the flyover going into Ames and the location of those bridges, they're already located bridges. We have to reconstruct 30 underneath lower. So before we want to do the middle part of this project, we're gonna finish the 30-35 interchange, make all those connections ready to handle 6-lane traffic when it gets to Ames. And then at the very end, we'll follow up and fill in the red part here. And we don't have years for that yet. That's not programmed yet. All right, and then the last thing I was going to show everyone, in case you haven't heard, this is a big project of Shelby's actually. We have an interstate project, Des Moines Area Interstate Project website where we're keeping all of the updated information you can find for closures, project plans, pictures, current events, newsletters that have been sent out in the past, and a link to our Facebook page where you can get updated pictures and like daily updates if you like. That is it. Does anybody have any questions about any of those? Want to go back to the pictures?
Doesn't appear so. Thank you, Deputy House. On, we have a report and vote on the fiscal year 2025 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program amendments, and last, Addison step up.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have a brief report on 4 transportation improvement program amendments for the current TIP. Get the simpler ones out of the way. This first one is to add a federal fiscal year 24 project to the current TIP project in West Des Moines. This is their phase 2 in their traffic system vehicle detection improvement project. This was awarded $432,000 in CMAQ funds. The project was included in the previous TIP, but it is still underway, and so the request is to add the project into the current TIP. Second project here, this project comes from the city of Polk City, involves minor adjustment to the alignment of the project. This is their high trestle trail connection through Polk City. It has been awarded $541,000 in TAP funds, and simply it is a alignment rather than going along the frontages here in green, but behind this property located at 301 North 3rd Street instead. That would be the only change to that project. This last 2 require a little more explanation. This third request comes jointly from the cities of Waukee and Clive. They have planned projects along segments of Alice's Road. Waukee's replacement project received $1.3 million in SDBG funds. Clive's received $500,000 in SDBG funds. And the request is to allocate the funding from Waukee's project to Clive's project. This would be pushing fiscal capacity out into giving us larger fiscal capacity in fiscal year 26 and pushing all the funding for Waukee's project into Clive's. Happy to give any more explanation about that at the end, but I'll cover the fourth one first. Fourth and final request comes from the city of Grimes, also involves reallocating SCBG funds between two projects. The request is to allocate the $500,000 from the South James Street Improvement Project here in green to the Southeast 37th Street West Gap Project, which received $400,000 in SCBG funds. This would also be pushing funding out to a later year, opening up fiscal capacity in the short term. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, these four amendments are here for your approval.
I'll just add a little bit of explanation, and Jake or Brad, if you want to add a little bit more too, in conversations with the two communities. Those last two projects in particular are ways to kind of allow the projects to move forward because they ran into some issues with DOT right of way and that sort of thing. So by making these adjustments, we're allowing the projects to move forward. And by using federal funds on some projects, locations that haven't already purchased land, or I think Grimes is a right of way issue with the railroad, it just allows the projects to move forward. So this is more of a creative way to just keep those projects moving.
Approval.
Second.
Moved by Clyde, second by Bondurant. Any additional questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, TIP is approved. Up next, our report and vote on the Unified Planning Work Program and Budget Final Draft. Dylan's taking this one.
Thank you. We have before you the final work program and budget for the fiscal year 2026 that will start in July. Had a draft before you in March that was sent to the US DOT and the Iowa DOT. They reviewed it and provided comments, and now we're back here with the final version. If you go to the next slide, the comments we received back from Iowa DOT and Federal Highway were very minor, just some updating, some errors and some rounding in the budget, some acronyms needed fixed. They did flag a few things that were probably going to be problematic with the new administration, a few terms that were used, so we made sure to clean those up as well. So the substance of the actual draft and the budget did not change very much at all. And I'll walk through that a little bit more in a second. If you go on, just to remind you, when we put together this work program, we were also developing our strategic framework. So we made the two match as much as possible. So there's four key work elements that match the four key, or the four pillars of our strategic planning framework. So the first one, to governance and operations, that's just all the things we do to keep the organization going in terms of our accounting and our committee support and those sort of things. The next one gets more into the federal requirements and the actual transportation planning work that we do. So the work or the funding allocations that we do, the TIP, the long range transportation plan, all the other projects related to those activities are included in there. The third one is more of the partnerships and services. So these are the membership services we provide to all of you. So data access, the data bike, grant writing, those sorts of things are in there. And then finally, the fourth one is more of the what we call purpose-driven innovation, or those important projects we're working on, such as the Future 435 multimodal impact study, getting into autonomous vehicles and being prepared for that, those sorts of things. There was one project that I think was taken out that I want to mention, and we've talked about this a few times over the last couple of years, but the passenger rail proposal that was from basically downtown Des Moines out to Grimes on the Norfolk Southern line. We talked about that a little bit. There was some funding in there to do a study on the rail. We have learned that the railroad is probably looking to abandon that line now. So we have taken that out because there's no sense in putting a budget in there and spending money on something that the railroad isn't going to be interested in. So that did come out. We go to the next slide that looks at the budget. This remains very similar to what you saw last time. Again, that rail study came out. That was really a net neutral because there was $25,000 in costs that was matched by $25,000 in revenue from the community. DOT did update their federal funding targets for us by a few $1,000s. And then we did capture, some of you have done special censuses. So we made sure to get those numbers updated for the local assessments. So our budget surplus at the end went from like $7,000 to $11,000. That's the big change there. And then finally, I've shown you something like this a few times. This is what our budget forecast looks like. Things look pretty good now. You do see where the costs start to outpace revenues in a couple of years. That will also time out to when we have a new reauthorization bill, most likely. And that's a time where our funding from the federal government will change. Usually goes up a little bit, but we won't know for sure until that happens. But when we do know it, we will have a pretty solid understanding what it will be for the next 5 years or so. So we'll keep looking at this and make sure we update it as we go forward, but this is what it looks like at this point in time. Went through that kind of quickly, but if there's any questions, feedback, I'm happy to take them. We did share this, we have talked with the finance subcommittee along the way. They looked at the final version, just we didn't meet, but we sent it to them online. No one had issues with it. But that we still work through that committee to work on all this stuff. So we'd ask for your approval so we can get this sent to DOT by the end of the month and have a updated agreement with them starting in fiscal year July 1st.
Entertain a motion.
Move. Second.
Moved by Moines, second by Moines. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Budget is approved. Up next, your report and vote on Safe Streets for All grant application development. Marcus.
Thank you. So as I'm sure you're aware, we're working on a grant application that comes out of our comprehensive safety action plan. US DOT, just as a reminder, issued a NOFO in March. It's due the end of June. And the June 26th date is actually the next policy meeting date. So providing this update now, by the time we have the grant ready to go, we'll be in a meeting and it will be submitted. Up to 580 million is available. The max amount for awards from a federal ask is $25 million. And they're expecting it to result in about 40 to 70 implementation grants across the country. The period of performance is between 12 months and 5 years, depending on the type of project and the length of construction, those type of items. They also noted in the NOFO that it's expected to take up to 12 months to get a grant agreement. So we're looking at like a 6-year window when you factor in that grant agreement, so 2031. And then applicants who have never received funding are encouraged to partner with them. Some eligible expenses: planning, design, development of projects, strategies, and a comprehensive safety action plan, or anything that was in a comprehensive safety action plan. Infrastructure projects, you can do environmental review, design, and construction, as long as the construction is completed within the period of performance or that 5-year window that we're looking at. Non-infrastructure strategies, such as education and enforcement practices, policy changes, and post-crash care, which would be like in traffic incident management type tasks would also be included. So just to give you an overview of what we've been developing, and I think in the agenda packet, I noted that there were some additional conversations. These numbers are updated post those conversations with a couple of communities. We're looking at 10 construction projects, 4 studies, 2 projects that we've categorized as education, resulting in 17 projects, federal ask of 24.28 million, with a local match requirement of $6 million roughly. That's that 20% match that we required to match as part of the program. 4 construction projects. The communities would be subrecipients. This is how we're approaching this. So the MPO would transfer funds to the communities to do the construction of those projects. Communities would be responsible for the design, construction, and then providing the MPO with the required documents to do the reporting. So we would take the reporting piece, and the communities would be responsible for the construction. For studies and education, we have MPO would lead there, and the idea there is that the MPO would lead procurement of the consultants just to make it one package, make it nice and neat, and take a little bit of the burden off of the communities. And then the communities would be able to select the firm and lead the project as it was yours, and then we would continue to manage the reporting. Additionally, communities would provide matching funds for the studies. So regional components, we did have 5 regional components that we're including in this. The first is a construction element, low cost countermeasures projects. Our total ask in all is $6 million of that federal funds, 4.8 million. This is to do small scale, quick build projects in communities that will have hopefully a high impact on traffic safety, so we're improving safety. And it's kind of a scattershot approach where we're going to be looking at lots of locations and do lots of little things. To support that, we have this roadway safety audit, the second line there, which is a study. We're asking for $4 million between the federal funds and the local matches to do those. Those would be done on high injury network corridors, would help us identify what low-cost countermeasures should be implemented on those corridors. And the way that we're thinking about this is that in 1 year, we would be doing roadway safety audits, and the next year we would be implementing with construction projects. We have a regional speed study that will look at things like corridors where speeding is occurring, a review of speed limits, looking at where safe speed limits could potentially be changed, recommendations on how to set speed limits, those types of things on a regional level. We also include TIM training, which is traffic incident management training. A lot of communities already do this. There are resources available, so this will just allow us some funds to work with your communities, provide education, promote that training, and really just make sure that that's part of the continued conversation. And it helps us address that post-crash care element of our grant application. The last piece there, education and policy enhancements. This is some additional funds that we've identified as potential ways to support policy and education components in our comprehensive safety action plan, but we have not identified those specifically yet. I'll note today I was up at the Institute of Transportation at Iowa State talking about education and policy changes and enforcement changes that they're looking to study statewide. So there are lots of things going on in that space that we could kind of piggyback on as part of that funding. For the regional components, the MPO is anticipating working with one subrecipient to help lead the design and construction of the low-cost countermeasures. As you all know, we don't design or construct anything, so we would look for. We're currently talking to Polk County to see if they'd be interested in helping manage that because it's a region-wide thing and they cover most of the area, and it would just help kind of coordinate that piece. MPO would procure on-call consultants to complete the roadway safety audits. $4 million in roadway safety audits will come to somewhere between 36 and 40 studies. Doing that over a 5-year period is somewhere between 10 and 12 studies per year is what we're thinking we need. So having on-call consultants will allow us to tap into them as needed and just kind of continue that workflow, which would be really useful. We anticipate procuring one consultant to complete the speed study, and then the MPO would lead this training, education, policy efforts as yeah.
So give me an example of traffic incident management, training and education.
Yeah, absolutely. So TIM training is primarily directed towards first responders. So we'd be working with police departments and fire departments and towing companies to coordinate training efforts so that when crashes occur on roadways, they know best practices on how to approach the scene, set up a scene for response, and then actually monitor, clean the site, get the vehicles removed, and get the lanes back open. And this is something that the DOT regularly trains on across the state. We would probably work with the DOT on setting up some times so that we can bring in, fire department staff, police department staff, and public works staff together so that we can do those trainings and it'll help kind of offset some of that.
This isn't the TIMS training straight to avoid the second, third accidents, not just the minor, it's the chain reaction, how they set up the avoidance of the additional accidents.
Yeah, exactly.
So if this is already happening, does this make our grant application look better? And that's why we're including it? I'm trying to understand if it's already happening, why are we applying?
So this is a conversation that came out of our TMAC group and included in the comprehensive safety action plans, where throughout conversations with communities and police departments, the level of TIM training, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it's been done, but it hasn't been refreshed. And we've had police chiefs tell us that, it's something that you really do need to have kind of be a refresher course, but they need to have the resources to be able to give to their department staff So that they can take this test, you know, they can take the course for staff in the middle of the night and have an idea of, you know, that late midnight shift. What they should be doing for TIM response when they're not on a day, when we're doing training, things like that. That's identifying ways to make the resources available to staff.
Questions?
Okay, so looking at member projects, here's the list of member projects. And so we have member community, the project description, the type, total cost, the federal share and the match. Worth noting is that the cost and the federal share and the match pieces are still being worked out with your communities, with staff. There are a few changes that are likely to happen to this as we look at project budgets, timing, and elements of the projects. But I think it's worth noting that a lot of the projects that we have here have already been submitted for TAP or STBG, and these funds will help them get completed a little bit quicker. So what we're hoping to get approval on today would be a list of projects and then the kind of the understanding that the communities would support the match when the resolutions come to the communities in the near future.
Any on the timing of the federal response to our application?
Oh, that's a good question. They did say that they don't have a designated response time, but they said it would be 12 months before agreements. So you could guesstimate, I would say, like, you know, 6 months would be the window, and then 6 months to get the agreement in place. Really quickly here, you can see just broken down by community and what the match would be for the construction projects. There's a second piece that I want to make you aware of, is that we're also asking that the member communities would be responsible for any match on the low cost countermeasure projects within your community and any roadway safety audits that occur within your community. But we don't have those costs yet because we haven't identified what those are. So when you get a resolution in front of your council, it'll say, here's our construction project. Here's what we're hoping, you know, we're okay with this match committing these funds. We're also supportive of these low cost countermeasures and roadway safety audits. So that's the way we've drafted it. We've provided that to your staff. They're wordsmithing it as needed, as they do with your resolutions. But I don't want you to be shocked when you see that, and there are those two elements. Any questions on that? Last thing, just the schedule of how we're completing this. We've finished our meetings with communities about projects. We've selected the projects, as you've seen, and we're hoping to get concurrence on those today. Between now and the end of May, we'll gain concurrence on the matches. So hopefully your staff is working on the resolutions, and those will be in front of you in the near future. We did set a deadline of June 16th, so hopefully everyone gets submitted by then. And then we're currently working on the grant narrative with the consultant team, and that includes maps that we need to show, and we're working on those budget pieces and again, reaching out to your staff to help us understand in more detail what elements are going to be funded by this project. So I know that was a lot. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Is the 20% match the requirement? Would we score better or have more likelihood if the match was higher?
The 20% match is the requirement. There's the potential that it would look better if we put in more match, but based on conversations with our consultant team, we don't see any need to. It's kind of one of those things where because of the nature of this project or this grant, the 20% match is kind of what's expected. It's not necessarily like build or these other mega projects where if you show more funding, that's gonna bump your score up. If we just need to show each.
Any questions?
I'll move the report.
Second.
Application.
By Des Moines, second by Des Moines. Any additional questions on the grant? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. All right. Application development grant is approved. Moving on, item 10, report and vote fiscal year 2029 funding recommendation. Gunner.
Thank you. You've seen this before. It was in your packets. Hopefully none of this is going to be a surprise to you today. We are asking for your approval today of the STBG and TAP awards that have been recommended by the funding subcommittee. As you can see here, we have about $20 million to award out and request totaling 43 million. Did have a pair of funding subcommittee meetings in March. I'm not going to read this to you all, but here's a list of all the projects and applications, their funding requests, and anyone that is recommended for an award is on the right-hand column. Next up, we have some planning and bridge applications. On the top there are the bridge pieces, on the bottom there are planning. Also note that we have some data licensing funding coming toward the MPO. This is for some of the fund data that we fund to have available to you all, your staff. The other thing I'll note is that the funding subcommittee elected to flex some STBG dollars over to TAP. Here are the recommended TAP additional funding. I think that's all I have here. Happy to take any questions for you.
Any questions? We take a motion. Been moved by everyone. Why don't we give it to Ankeny and Bondurant? Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. All right, funding and recommendations are approved. Up next, you have a report for Gunner on the future 435 update.
We have some good news to share. If you haven't heard already, I'm sure you have. The region has desired to have an interstate designation for the 565 corridor for about as long as it's been around. To recap, I know you've heard this before, but a standard interstate designation will be problematic for some of our existing users. Minimum speed, if that were to kick in, it would prohibit farmers from moving their equipment. It also would kick in a federal weight piece that would prohibit the delivery of soybeans to ADM plant, basically is what it boils down to. And so for those reasons, it's been a very difficult. We had a political challenge. Joe was laughing at me. Thank you for bringing some levity here. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. So I put together a real brief recap of the effort here. The bypass, the last piece of it was finished in 2002, so that's the age of that corridor. The last significant effort prior to this one was in 2013. That ended with a lot of contentious conversations, some bad blood that we inherited in our most recent effort. I still hear about that meeting in Carlisle to this day. In 2020, the most recent effort really got underway. Big thanks to the Iowa DOT. They really put us on this path. They did a long extended outreach. And at the end of it, they came up with a 4-part action plan that's down at the bottom there. They then passed it off to the MPO and the Greater Moines Partnership to implement this. And that tipped another domino, another round of a lot of conversations. As a result of those conversations, we learned that the Iowa Farm Bureau had a policy prohibiting or that they would oppose any interstate designation unless an alternative were provided. And that kind of provided us the pivotal piece where we could say, okay, well, let's talk about the alternative. That then got into the legislation that was first introduced last legislative cycle. And then it was refined and reintroduced in 2025. As you all saw, that bill passed 90-2 in the House, 50-0 in the Senate. And the signing ceremony has been scheduled for 12:50 on Tuesday afternoon. If you can make it, I've got the information on a different slide here, but if you can make it, just send a RSVP to Ryan at the partnership. Real quickly though, we're not done. This is just the big
first step. We are going for the federal exemption. That process is starting now. When hopefully we have a surface transportation reauthorization bill. That's when we're hoping to have this. So best case scenario, 18 months. And then we still need to do a technical analysis and a designation application. So a real quick recap on what the bill passing the legislature this year entails. It does provide that minimum speed exemption if when there is an interstate put in place. Second thing it does is it prohibits the Iowa DOT from applying for that designation status until that federal piece is in place. Initially, there was an appropriation in the legislation for an alternatives analysis. Through some late hour negotiations that turned into a directive to do it. A big thanks go out to the Iowa DOT that stepped up and said, we'll make sure that this happens. We'll pay for the state half out of our budget, and then the MPO will pay for the other half. MPO and DOT staff will be coordinating on who's playing what role on that, what the timeline looks like, stakeholder involvement, et cetera. So those planning efforts are in their very early stage, getting underway. As mentioned, they'll pass through, had pretty good, I feel pretty good about 140 to 2 at the legislature signing ceremony next week. I'll pause there. Any questions?
Who was the two?
It was Fett from Warren County, who's going to hear about. And then also, I don't remember his name, but it was an opposition to the pipeline that had nothing to do with our bill.
Gotcha. Thank you.
When did you start working on this, Connor?
5 years ago.
Are you still in high school or?
I'm older. I'm older than I look, Carl. My first involvement was sitting, I remember it very clearly because I was upstairs in my makeshift office listening to a Zoom call that the Iowa DOT and your predecessor held over Zoom, and that didn't go so hot. But what came out of that, they pivoted, and rather than having everybody in a big room together, which was a recipe for arguing, they started a listening tour. And I think Stu Anderson has played a pivotal role in this. He deserves a lot of credit for where we are today. Mesh Delavue, who was part of the construction of the corridor, he has since retired, but he was part of those initial stakeholder sessions. And it was meetings with the ag groups, meetings with corridor communities, meetings with all of the economic development professionals, and they're the ones who really put us on this, 4-part action plan. And there's a lot of work that went into the implementation of it too. I think this room can feel really good about the progress about the momentum that we carried. And I think, staff, I personally feel really good about this, staff does, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, you guys carried so much water on this. I think, Supervisor Holm, some of the relationships that he leveraged, you all chipped in, and as a result, we are where we are. So feel really good about that. I should also mention the Great Domain Partnership. They expended a lot of energy on this. It's been a feature priority, multiple trips to DC, a lot of effort at the Hill this year. So big shout out to the partnership too.
Who's carrying the water in DC for us? Is it Senator Ernst or Senator Grassley?
Sherry Kuntz is going to be our primary planning council. Yeah. So I think all the trips that we have taken, and I know, Joe, we have some pretty fun memories from a trip to meet with Sherry one time. But all that has really paid off. And what we heard from them early was make it go smooth at the State House and then we're ready. And on our DC trip last year, she said, be ready by 2025. Because we want to kick off the surface transportation reauthorization bill. Our best shot at getting it in there is to bake it at the early stages of putting together the surface reauthorization bill. And so, as Sherry deserves quite a bit of credit too, she made phone calls to Iowa lawmakers. She helped set a deadline that we need to take care of this year. And she was doing that right up till the end of the legislative session. So Sherry's played a big part here. Going forward, where we're at is she asked us to develop and submit to them proposed language. This language was developed by the Iowa DOT. Thank you again. MPO reviewed it, but it looked great just as it is. It's a pretty basic grandfather clause. You could operate there before, you can operate there after an interstate designation. But this is what we submitted. I'm going to move back here. So where we're at in the process right now at the federal level is the offices have the opportunity to submit projects and proposals and policies to the US Department of Transportation for inclusion in there. And that's what is being done at this moment. And Sherry has already done that on behalf of Grassley's office. We're hopeful that other offices of our delegation will submit it additionally. And we've been collecting letters of support, mostly for Nunn's office. I know several of you all have provided those, a big thank you for that. And that's at Sherry's directive. She says, we don't need them, just send them to Nunn. And I had a separate conversation with Ernst Staffer, and he's like, it doesn't matter if they're addressed to us, just make sure that we see that there is support. So we're taking Sherry's lead on this. And feel good about where we're at. There's no question of whether they're supporting the delegation at this point. Like, I'm not hearing any opposition from the delegation. And that's really changed over the last few years, where early on it was like, you know, roll your eyes, where are the farmers at? Talk to me about your egg problem. And then, you know, in the last couple of years, it's like, oh, okay, I'm hearing less chatter. You guys are really working hard to build relationships. This is really paying off. And last year it was, get it done. This year it was, let's roll. One thing real quick, there was a mention of another 18 months or so, and I know there was some surprise at that. That's just when the reauthorization bill. So the current reauthorization bill expires at the end of next federal fiscal year. So they're starting to work on it now, but it won't be put together and voted on and all fully approved until probably next fall. So that's where that timeline comes in. It's that.
I'm looking for the day that we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Right.
Is Grassley on that committee? Is he on it? 'Cause I remember
He
that.
is on committees that will get, because he's on finance subcommittee, they have a role in the thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of different committees depending on whether you're transit or highway or what they goes into.
So I know when Gunnar and I went out there, he said if we get it done at the state level, it's a slam dunk, he'll get it done.
So we're hopeful, we're feeling good. I will point out that this body decided at one point that we were not going to attempt to do some of the other steps concurrently, that we would do them subsequently. What I mean by that is we have a technical analysis that needs to be done prior to the actual application for the interstate status. If you wanted, we could try to move that up a little bit so that that was starting while the reauthorization was still being hammered out. That would be a potential way to speed up the timeline. The risk of that, of course, is if it doesn't pass Congress, then we've spent all this time and wasted the money.
What's the projection for how long that will take? And then how much will it cost?
For the technical analysis, we need updated numbers. The last time I want to say it was about $250,000 for the study. The last time we got a quote, and that's been a few years from now. So those costs have definitely gone up. And then it would have a shelf life of maybe 5 years. That's the big thing, is the shelf life of it.
Yeah.
And do it, and then it takes, they can do continuing resolutions. They don't, that's the case scenario is 18 months, that they actually get it done when they, right. So oftentimes there's a year or two continuing resolution.
How long does it take to do the study? Right.
It would only take a couple months, and it doesn't take all that long.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if they're not, if they don't pass it, they
Yeah, I think the safe course is just to wait.
waited this long.
I do want to acknowledge Gunnar's work on this, like someone's asked the question. He has taken this over and really got us to where we are, so I just want to thank him publicly.
Absolutely. Good work.
All right, thank you, Gunnar. Up next, we have a report from Dylan on the legislative update and the DC trip recap.
Thanks. Really just want to focus on the DC trip here. As Gunnar said, or alluded to, we did talk about this quite a bit on the trip a few weeks ago in DC. We met with Senator Grassley and Representative Nunn, and this was the big focus of the conversation. And in that meeting, we had representatives from Polk County, the Iowa DOT. In the meeting with Grassley, we had representatives from Norwalk as well, who were able to speak to the impact it's had on their communities. All those were very positive, and Gunnar's covered that very well. We also had an opportunity to meet with US DOT staff, and that's something we haven't traditionally done, but we thought it would be a good thing to do, just given the change in the administration and a lot of the changes that have been happening due to the administration. And that was very interesting. When talking about their priorities, they really outlined 4 key things, and that was safety, families, innovation, and shovel readiness. But they said turn dirt. They just want to get money out the door and get it actually into the hands of folks and get it going. The interesting thing about safety is we said, what does that mean? What can we expect changes? And they said, well, we're not doing bike lanes anymore. We're not going to do road diets anymore. Those are not safe. That's very counter maybe to what we've been doing in this comprehensive safety action plan and some of the other efforts. So we asked for a little clarification, and it seems like they're saying they're not going to do discretionary programs for those. We would still be able to use our own money for it. And in talking to Sherry Kuntz and some of the other congressional staffers, they said, yeah, those are still eligible. Just don't hang your hat on those projects when you go to DC or you put in an application. If they're an element of it, great. They just probably shouldn't be the main focus. So that was one of the big things we learned. We also shared with them some of the thoughts we had on reauthorization. And one of the things that from the MPO's perspective, as well as some of the national organizations, there's just a lot of programs out there in the current authorization bill that were created, and that's great. There's a lot of funding. That funding is oftentimes very fragmented. We end up with a situation where communities are applying for the same project to 5 different programs. It's just kind of inefficient. So our message was keep the funding levels where they are, but make it a little more simple. Make it maybe a little more formula funding that comes to the MPO, and we can decide what happens with it. The congressional staff really like that. And it sounds like the DOT staff also like that. So when we get to the reauthorization and they start to have public hearings and start to put that together, that might be where we see the winds blowing there. But there's a long ways to go in that. We'll keep you updated what we hear. But that's really what we had from the DC trip.
Bill, director's report.
All right, a couple of updates for you. The first one is that the MPO will receive an award from the National Association of Regional Councils for our data bike project. This is something that will be awarded next month in Seattle. Marcus will be out there attending the conference and we'll accept that on behalf of the MPO. So that's kind of a cool thing. This was in the medium metro award category. So any metros between 200,000 to 1 million roughly is where we found the fall. And we were the award recipient of that. So that's a pretty fun thing. And it comes about 10-year anniversary of the data bike program. So we can look back at that and see what impact it's made. And I will tell you, attending NARC conferences, a lot of other MPOs have copied and have their own data bike now. So hopefully they're not getting awards. We should get the awards. I want to introduce our summer intern who started yesterday. This is Janet Slavic. She's an Iowa State student in the master's program with community and regional planning, also urban design. She'll be helping us out. We have another intern, Gracie Foster, who rides the data bike. She's been with us for a couple of years, so she's not in here and I didn't put her up there, but I will acknowledge her as well. Quick thing, you might see me, some of you have already seen me, some of you will see me at upcoming city council meetings that you're having. So I've been going around meeting with city administrators and managers, just hearing what's going on and kind of touching base. And oftentimes the end result of that is come present to the full councils. I am doing that. If you would like me to come out and present to your council, just let me know. Something in particular you want me to cover, again, please let me know, but just be on the lookout for that. A couple other things here as we get going on our updated unified planning work program and kind of stemming from the work we did in the past on the strategic planning. We've got some updated project tracking capabilities that we're looking at internally and that we're putting together. The big preview here is that you will see a little bit more of this as we go forward here at this level. It won't be every single month, but we will periodically just give you regular updates on where we're at with our work program, kind of how progress is going on these projects. So to keep you a little more informed, to be a little more transparent, and keep ourselves honest too when we say we're going to do all this stuff in the work program, that we actually follow through and we do it. So we're investing in that. It costs us all of $20 on Etsy to buy this spreadsheet. That's a recommendation from Cass. So thank you.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah, I think that's right.
Final thing for me, just to look ahead on the left are some of the projects that we've got coming up again in the work program. Our active transportation plan, freight plan, and a public participation plan update are kind of the 3 big focus areas we're looking at right now. We would welcome any participation from you to serve on committees around those projects. So again, put that call out there. And that's one of the recommendations from that governance assessment we did was having a little more involvement from all of you on those committees. So open invitation there. And I've heard from some of you, so thank you for that. And then next month, looking ahead at our agenda, we will have Federal Highway here giving a presentation on the results of our certification review that happened in April. So they will be here sharing that with you, and we'll have a report out in the agenda packet so you can see it ahead of time. We'll have an update on our multimodal economic impact study. And for those of you that serve on that group, there's another meeting coming up there. So you'll get a preview of that before you appear. And then we'll have our draft TIP approval. And the TIP has to be approved in July. Because this group did not meet in July, next month will be your time to review that. And otherwise it'll be up to you. Figure that out. So I went through that a little quickly. I want to get everybody out of here. So probably enjoy your long weekend. But if there's any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, that's what happens.
Any questions, other items of interest? Anything from NPO staff? Anything from membership? All right, our next meeting is on June 26th, 4 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.